Hello, Chris. How is your rainy Tuesday going?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
It's going. In progress?
That's good. That's good. I'm currently have 3 dogs cuddling around my feet, and one of them is licking the bottom of my leg. Whereas Chris has no dogs around him, and now is laughing at me because he's a jerk.
Well, yeah, because they're wet.
Chris, before we get started, this episode is focused on reviewing Critical Role Call of the Netherdeep. Everyone keeps adding the Critical Role part in there, probably to get all those fans to buy the book. There's a couple of new pieces of information. In fact, actually, one new thing just dropped like 2 hours ago before we were recording this.
Ooh, wow. Were we like one of those YouTubers that like supposedly gets the pre-copy, reads the whole in like an hour, and then does a 15-minute video where they say, hey, guess what? I just got the free copy of the book. No one's paying me to do this, and I can barely tell you about anything because I don't want to spoil it for you. I'm like, then why the fuck are you making a video?
No,
Anyways.
We don't get anything free or ahead of time, which makes us impartial.
Exactly.
And poorer.
Exactly. Well, I don't think they like us because we don't really say positive things all the time.
Well,
but we do.
I mean, eventually, in 20 years, we'll be the cream of the crop because we'll find everyone else and beat them.
Everybody else will be dead because it's a whole bunch of white guys. Old white guys. Wait a second. That's me.
Let's go back to the new news.
All right, new news. Talk to me.
The first one that was just dropped 2 hours earlier before we started recording is Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel. It is a...
Citadel?
Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel. Sorry. Journeys and Radiant Citadel are about 10, 20 point font bigger than Through the.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think you're supposed to yell those words.
All right, great.
So Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel is a new anthology book / setting. It takes place in a central city known as the Radiant Citadel, so I guess no sigil.
Yeah.
This is, I guess, well, they were saying that they're going to release new settings for this year, so I guess this is one of the new settings that they're releasing?
It's not really a new setting, it's the Ethereal plane. Is that a new setting?
For 5e, yes.
I guess so. I guess that's true. Because the whole thing is the new location is the Ethereal plane, which exists, kinda? I don't know.
Well, no, so the Ethereal plane, for those who don't know, it's kind of like an alternate dimension from like the material plane, and it stretches, so it wraps around the material plane, the Shadowfell, the Feywild, and then it touches all of the elemental planes, but it doesn't extend out into the outer planes.
Right.
And it's used as like a transitioning plane where you can go from the material plane onto the ethereal plane, walk across it for, well, if it's
or blink into
first edition monster manual, manual of the planes, and you're looking at like 9,000 days of walking. But it's more like a month or two of walking through basically a void, and then you arrive at whatever plane you're looking for through a curtain of color.
So when you blink, you go to the ethereal plane, right?
Correct.
So it did technically exist, and then like you're just like crossing over the veil into like a 5-foot square right of the thing, or are you traveling 9,000 miles to almost the other end of it? I've always wondered that.
So you're basically, when you go into the ethereal plane, you just phase out of this reality and into the new reality, or like the new dimension, and so it's like everything is just kind of
but where on that new dimension?
Wait, what? Where on the?
It's a big dimension. Like
no. The dimension is everything else. It's just in between it. It's kind of like those artworks where like you rotate it from one side, you see one thing. You rotate to the other side, and you can see the other image on it. Like they both exist at the same time on it, but they're just, you have to view it from different angles.
All right. Well, I'm glad they're going to give us a little more on it. I mean,
yes.
5e went hardcore into the Feywild, which was...
Feywild. 4e had a lot more to say about the Feywild, whereas 5e is like, here's an adventure, and we're not telling you anything more about it.
Well, yeah. I mean, the transition from the Feywild to being nothing in 1e to now being like a real place, I guess peaked at 4e, and then...
Well, so the anthology, I'll just quickly go through it. It is 13 standalone adventures. Mm-hmm. Each adventure is basically one level. that you go through. It's all written by people of color. Like, that's the big selling point is, like, all the writers are people of color. All the artists are people of color.
Huh.
Is
it just people of color, or is it also from different communities? Let me put it that way.
Yeah, see. So all the workers are people of color, but then it's still, Wizards of the Coast, normal people. So Jeremy Crawford, Mike Merles, all those people are still old white people that
I mean,
are in charge of it all.
Does it include the LGBT?
I don't know. They haven't specified. I assume there's plenty of the LGBTQ plus representation.
I can't do the alphabet on that, and I know it sounds horrible. My daughter yells at me all the time.
As she should.
Well, she's a proud.
They did not specify that, so maybe we're at a point where they feel like they don't have to. What they did specify was this is all written by brown and black people of color.
Excellent.
Men, women, all that fun stuff.
Oh, fun. All right. And so, my daughter might actually look at this one then.
And so basically, each adventure is tied to the Radiant Citadel in different ways. And you just go out on different adventures. They've only shown off 3 adventures. The first one they talked about did not excite me in the least because you have to, for level 1, you have to find out if someone is stealing produce from like a rival market stall, but the only way you can do that is by doing marketplace games to win the trust of other people.
Okay.
And like they're selling it as Family Feud, but with food. And
ooh, I'd be good at that one.
I don't know. That doesn't excite me.
Hey.
And the issue, like the writer, and like this is, I don't want to say it's an issue, but like what kind of just makes me roll my eyes a little bit is like the writer was talking about that she wrote it not just to be performed at the table, but for actual plays and live streams. Like that was one of her main focuses in like writing it, and so like that's immediately just like right.
Yeah,
I don't.
No, I understand why, because I mean it's very popular right now. I mean it's a very dominant force online, streaming your game. That's just not for me. I don't watch any. I'm not interested in it.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are. So I guess it's a smart thing to do. It's just not my thing.
Well, I mean, I guess if it is actual plays that have driven 5e's popularity, Critical Role.
Yep.
Other actual plays, like not another D&D podcast. There's Daddies and Dungeons.
Don't you listen to one? It's not D&D though.
No, I listen to the Glass Cannon podcast,
right?
Because I have class. And
a free plug for them for the 100 people that listen to us.
No, I all the actual plays I listen to are Pathfinder 1e actual plays. So
yeah, well, we'll talk about that later. So I guess my only question is, if each one's a single level, they've got to be really short. I mean...
Well, I mean, it's like one chapter for each one, yeah. And it might not be the full experience you need. Instead, it's probably milestone leveling, so then they could just be like, you only did one thing worth 100 experience, but you level up to level 20.
I guess milestone makes sense for that. I mean, it's one of those things where I'm just thinking of the old modules that I've dug out all of them that I have that, it would be... You'd have Against the Giants. I just actually pulled out that it's G1, 2, 3, and you get 3 levels. So you get, and they're small. And man, did they? Back then the maps were, hey, here's a page of just little hexes in a 40-foot corridor enters into a room, and the big excitement was when the room was more shaped like a rhombus. But it was big.
Man, you guys discovering new shapes.
I know, it was crazy. We were wild, but they were still a decent size. They were still 20 pages or so. And so I'm like, what an adventure!
And also each hex for that was more like 10 or 15 feet per 5-foot hex.
Yeah,
per hex. Not
but they were also still. It was funny because when you walk down a corridor, though, it was still 5 feet by 5 feet.
Well, don't get ahead of yourself, Chris.
It was so stupid. Anyways, we'll have a conversation about 1E one day. Maybe that'll be the next podcast.
Yeah, and so the thing that kind of strikes me about this is if they're counting this as them releasing a new setting for this year, because they were talking about doing 2 or 3 new settings, never been previewed in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. So maybe
Why
I'll
isn't
still
it Spelljammer?
Maybe I'll get Planescape Spelljammer one day. Probably not. This means that I actually don't get that much information about the Radiant Citadel. Instead, there's so much of it is taken over for a bunch of adventures that you're really not getting that much stuff to run the Radiant Citadel. So as the DM, it is once again upon you to take a sparse little bit of information and try and flesh out the rest of the city. Like, there isn't a guide to the city. It's more like, yeah, here's a 3-leaf pamphlet on what the city is, and yeah, you have fun making up everything else.
So that's Baldur's Gate. Did you like that? Because the city was
Baldur's Gate. Well, the issue is with Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus is they put it in Baldur's Gate so that they could get all the fans who love Baldur's Gate excited to buy it, and then had about 50 pages of text in the back about Baldur's Gate. Except you don't spend more than 2 or 3 levels in Baldur's Gate, and then you're in Avernus. And then what information do they have Avernus? Nothing. Even though you're supposed to be spending 7, 8 levels in Avernus,
you get cars.
You get cars, and that's about it. It's frustrating, and the fact that you're probably going to TPK in Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus when you're like level 2 because they decided that an enemy should have Fireball and just destroy the entire party.
I remember that.
We talked about Descent to Avernus before the hiatus, and we were fairly kind to it. I know I had a lot of issues, but at the end of it I still said hey, you'd probably pick it up. That was mostly selfish reasons because I wanted more Planescape stuff.
Right.
I feel like as I've gotten older over the past 2 years, angrier perhaps.
How old are you now?
I would 30.
Wait, say that louder.
I'm not going to. I can't, looking back, yes, I still think Descent to Avernus is a pretty good adventure, but only if you get it on sale. And I don't know, I'm getting tired of these, here's a settings book. Oh, sorry. Most of it's just an adventure that might not be good.
And I understand that. The adventure is to get people interested in it. And although it's a good segue into what we're going to talk about today, my only issue with Descent, and we're going down the rabbit hole again, was that, it was a blatant plug for the new video game. It really was. I thought it was genius to do that. I also thought it was, the blatant part of it made me a little it feels kind of yucky.
They could have said it in anywhere and it would have been fine. And also, this isn't a review of Descent to Avernus. There's very, very little character motivation.
Yeah.
But,
anyways,
so that's the exciting new journey through the Radiant Citadel,
which will be interesting because we can tie that into Call of the Netherdeep and see how you felt about the city. So what's this exciting news that you're holding back?
The Radiant Citadel is set to release I don't remember when.
June 21st.
Hey, you found it.
Yep.
Very good.
Hey, I contributed something.
Also, the alternate cover art looks pretty cool for it. And the regular cover art looks pretty cool for it too.
Flying kitty cat.
I feel like I've done all the reviewing for it.
All right, so you had a piece of news that you wouldn't share with me that you wanted to be surprised for me, which I don't think is going to be a surprise for many people, but tell me.
I think you'll be surprised, Chris.
Okay. I'm giddy with anticipation.
All right, so the new... It's not actually... It's kind of D&D. It's kind of not. I don't know. But there's supposed to be a new Dungeons & Dragons Skirmish war game. And so it's kind of like Warhammer kind of
mass
war
combat?
Game things. Yeah, it's like mass combat type stuff. It's produced by Whiz Kids because, of course, they want to sell more miniatures.
Right.
And so, we have that to look forward to. There isn't really a huge amount of information for it, but it's supposed to release sometime in the third quarter of this year.
Well, I'll be fascinated to see if it stacks up against the mass combat that you created. Which, did that ever go on Dumbstat? Because...
Yeah, the mass combat's somewhere on our website. I can link to it.
It'll be. I'll be curious to see how much they stole from you because they probably should have. When we basically beta tested it, it was a lot of fun. So cool. I'm interested to see how it goes. Totally. That harkens back to OD&D, where it had its roots in wargaming.
Chainmail.
Yeah. So that'll be cool to see. Being old and decrepit, as you like to tell me. How.
I'm not old and decrepit.
I am.
Oh, I'm glad you admit it.
Jackass. How that harkens back to the older days that hopefully they give you a little more information on how to do it versus, hey, roll a bunch of D6s. You have henchmen. They're dead. Oh, don't forget to pay them. And morale checks, which I do miss morale checks.
Or if you're a ranger, you can never get your henchmen back.
No shit. Horrible.
Yeah, more information is supposed to be released next month, so when that happens, might be the time for our next podcast episode, and so we can talk a little bit more about it.
Yay. Call of the Netherdeep.
Critical Role Call of the Netherdeep. You got to say the critical role part. That's part of the title.
It is, actually. It really is.
I think the first thing we have to talk about is what everyone's going to see first. The cover, and also the lack of an alternate cover for this book.
Which was interesting.
Yeah, I guess they didn't like Critical Role that much. I don't know. I won't read into not having an alternate cover. Probably the big thing is just shipping. And global shipment type stuff is all being wonky. At least that's my opinion I'm going with.
I'll say one thing about the cover. It does strike me as a little odd that the 5 people featured around the arc that's around the main figure of the story are your rivals, which we'll get into
the main characters of this adventure, Chris.
Which we'll get into a minute. I'm sure you have lots of opinions on that, and I know after I read the book, I watched a lot of the reviews, and lots of people had feelings on that. Strong feelings. There were a lot of feelings.
Did you know this is an epic Critical Role campaign? What about this is Critical Role again? Just that it takes place in Exandria?
Well, see, it's fascinating to me because they talk about introducing a new, that putting in the ethereal plane is their new campaign setting. Well, technically they have already, there's another one other than Forgotten Realms.
Well, no, Exandria. They had the Tal'Dorei campaign setting or whatever it's called last year.
Mm-hmm. No. I'm just saying that there already is. So basically we do have 2 campaign settings for 5e.
We got Forgotten Realms, Eberron.
Realms.
I don't know if they count Feywild as its own campaign.
No,
setting.
They haven't made a book for it, so I guess Eberron. I'll give you
Strixhaven. You got Theros. You got Ravnica. You got.
But Ravnica doesn't have a setting. It has a title in a book. I mean,
that's the setting.
Yeah, I know, but really, what do you find out about it? Hey, it's a different place.
Wild Beyond the Witchlight, kind of. I don't know.
No, please don't.
I'll come up with one more. I know there's one
more. All
right.
So let's say campaign settings that have more than one book. And Exandria got basically its own book. I mean, they dive deep into that one.
Yeah, Explorer's Guide to Wildemount. That was it.
Yep. They do a good job diving
Acquisitions Incorporated there. I found it.
Jeez. So anyway, cover, strange. Where do you want to start?
Well, I want to start with the cover because this is an awful cover.
Really?
I hate it. Because to me, if I was a player and I saw this, I'd be like, oh, those are the main characters.
Yeah.
Or maybe I would also think, those are the villains I get to kill. Also, Shaggy is on the right-hand side.
I do like that. I just wish Scooby was in the center.
And then also I saw there's a lot of speculation that the woman on the left, and we'll have a picture of the cover up in these show notes. Everyone was thinking that had something to do with Jester and Ford because obviously it says Critical Role everywhere. It has to be about them. No, there's nothing about Critical Role or any other 2 campaigns in this. They're just using that because no one knows the word Exandria or Wildemount or Tal'Dorei or anything like that. Yeah, they know Critical Role though.
So, I watched half the first season. Again, I do not enjoy watching actual play. And that is obviously Critical Role for most people is the top of the food chain. It's just not for me. And
4 hours is very long.
Yeah, there's especially when I'm sitting at your table and you're trying to kill me for 4 hours.
Nah, it's fine.
My biggest issue with this is the book is it's not that you can walk into this book and know nothing about the setting and still play it, but there's a lot of Easter eggs for the people that are like lore fanatics about the Critical Role campaign setting that are gonna like be all giddy and know all this crap, and I'm just like okay, I wouldn't want to play at a table where someone was just always peppering me with this stuff like, why don't you know? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, I just enjoy it because you can drop in and be like, cool.
Yeah, and like for each chapter where they take you to a new location, they do provide, 10, 20 pages that I could skip of just campaign setting information.
But that's great because they, and we've talked about this a million times. I like lore.
Yeah.
And so I guess I let me rephrase my earlier statement then. I like the book because they provide that information, but I guess there's a lot of things that they don't include that I think the Critical Role fanatics are going to get either mad about, or when they find that little minutia in there, are going to really kind of drive it home with people. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't want that. Hey, they gave me enough information that great, I can read this and be like, hey, this is pretty cool, or I don't like that so much.
Yeah, and I'm coming from this. I've seen Campaign 1 of Critical Role. I watched like 10% of Campaign 2 because the wife was watching it. And I would just look up sometimes, see that they're talking for about 30 minutes about the same topic that they were talking about an hour ago. And then I think the wife has been watching Campaign 3, which I saw 2 seconds worth. And I went back to whatever it is that I do.
Did they spend an hour naming the pirate ship that they got like we did in our campaign?
Well, that's on you.
And then came up with the stupidest name known to mankind.
The Swiftwind is not the stupidest. They could have gone worse. They could have called it Bikini Bottom.
Fair enough.
So I don't know a huge amount about Critical Role, but from what I can see, a lot of people are unsure as to when this adventure is actually supposed to take place in Campaign 1, Campaign 2, Campaign 3. When does it kind of take place? Because they want to include other characters, but as far as I can tell, there isn't really any information like that in there.
It's a drop-in. You just put into the world. Why does it have to tie into the adventure?
Because they want Ford to be there. Or Jester.
Tough shit.
Vex, Vaxel, or the fresh cut grass who is in Campaign 3. I don't know. Don't ask me, Chris.
Okay.
We'll go ahead and I guess we'll open up the cover and dive into the adventure. So the adventure is... So the book itself is about 224 pages. You have about 7 chapters devoted to the adventure, which is about the first 190-ish pages are the adventure, and then the last 40 pages are all for creatures, magic items, and some ancillary things for her.
Right, which I had mentioned I didn't read. I kind of zipped through it last night. I apologize. Because I got to one of the creatures and I was like, oh, hell no. But we'll get to that.
So the widest view of this adventure is you start out in a small port city of Jagao, and then you go you find a MacGuffin. You or the rivals take that MacGuffin to a city called Bazozan, where apparently demons were trying to go there, but you only fight gibbering mouthers there because they're not demons. I don't know. From there, another MacGuffin happens where someone teleports you off towards Marrakech, off in the desert, which is about 2,000-3,000 miles away or something like that. You then have to join a faction. You go under the city to a place called... Do you have to
join the faction, though?
You don't... You kind of have to, but you kind of don't.
Right.
We'll get into that. You go into what's known as the Drowned City below Marrakech called Moro, I think. There's a pronunciation guide, which is very handy.
Which is one of those things that I was just like, maybe people do listen to us, and they're like, please stop butchering words.
Yeah, let me find that pronunciation guide whenever I have to flip back to it multiple times. There we are. How do I pronounce Kalmoro? Kalmaro.
Yeah.
Kalmaro. That's okay. Which is actually not technically its real name. No one else knows its name, and so they just called it that because it means grief or awfulness or something.
Sunken ruin of an ancient city beneath another word I can't pronounce, and I'm not going to bother looking at it. Yeah. So cool. Continue.
Yep. And so from there, and during this entire time, you're getting visions of having to help some sort of ancient lost hero, and it leads you down below Ank'Harel into a place known as the Netherdeep, which again, harking back to the cover, why can't we have something about the Netherdeep on the cover? Right now it's just 5 jackasses I don't care about. when we could have had like a really cool cover of what is the Netherdeep and like really excite the minds of DMs and get them excited to buy this. Because right now it's like, well, that's not that exciting.
Because 1A selling point for this is
Critical Role.
Yeah. 1B is look at our new quote unquote system, Rivals.
Yeah. And so then you get into the Netherdeep. You have to fight your way through. You have to find fragments of sorrow and sadness before you can finally face this ancient tragic hero and then use emotions to free him. Or you kill him, or you unleash him, and then you get the bad ending.
We'll get to that.
And that is the adventure.
Okay. All right, we're done. No.
Yeah, we did it. So I guess we'll just rewind everything and start back at the beginning.
Yeah.
Chapter 1 has 2 parts. One is focused on a bunch of mini games, and one on doing a quick dungeon dive, quite literally, into a subterranean tunnel / the ocean.
Well, go all the way back to the village where they have to do the games.
Yeah, Jagao. Yeah, that's chapter 1.
I get it plays into the role-playing aspect that 5e enjoys to do a lot of stuff with. My biggest issue with this is all you're doing is freaking rolling dice. There's even riddles. You don't have to solve the riddles. You're making, wisdom checks, I think?
Yeah, something like that.
That's freaking ridiculous. There's so much of an opportunity here to make this such an interesting thing. Man, all you're doing is rolling dice. I guess if you like to roll dice, cool.
Well,
I was disappointed.
People love rolling dice, Chris. But also, it's like, how else are you going to, for riddles, yeah, you could have the players come up with it. But also, I would say, a player doesn't have to be as smart as their character to play a very, very smart character.
Oh, and shit. That's what I'm doing right
now. Ability checks and stuff are, how does the character know things? It's not super reliant on players. So I would always like it if players figured it out just for fun, but I have no problem letting them roll dice to get hints and solve the puzzles.
Just felt boring to start off with. It's fodder to introduce Rivals.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting way of doing it. Yeah, because like what you said, it's a fodder way. Blah, 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 blah. It's a fodder way to introduce the Rivals. Is that every time you take part in one of these games, there is a rival that you can either beat or be beaten by, and then they, it's always something nice though. It's always like, if you beat them, they're just like, you're real good at this. And if they beat you, they're like, you're real good at this. It
doesn't seem fair. It's like 5-on-1 every time.
Well, it's on like 1 or 2 rivals per each mini game. And then it seemed like you can do these. Everyone at the table gets a chance to do the mini game so that they get the shiny magic item at the end of it. I mean, I say magic item. It's a one-time consumable that is kind of minor in its power, which is, it's fine. But you're 3rd level. And all you do is get your starting equipment. And I don't have a problem. But I was looking at the loot for this, and the loot is incredibly sparse. It's like by the time you're level 5, you find a 57 silver pieces, a ring worth 250 gold, which you're supposed to give to someone else, a +1 dagger that you're supposed to give back to its rightful owners, a bunch of one-time use magical items that you got at 3rd level, and you don't have enough money to buy rations to even make it to Bazozan, the next place from Jagao.
Who keeps track of it? Really?
It's just like, wow, you guys are... I thought sometimes I was being stingy.
Congratulations for winning. Here's a medal.
Yeah, but that's for 2 levels, and it's just like, wow, that sucks. But, yeah.
Look, before we go into... What is your opinion on starting at level 3?
I like it. It's fine because, let's face it, level 1 and 2 suck.
Yeah.
And really, we started at all class... And the issue at starting at level 1 is that you could play a fighter, but you're a dumbass. Even if you want to play like a battle master or a samurai or a cavalier, it's like, no, you're just a dude with a stick.
Right.
Whereas...
It's unbalanced.
Yeah, whereas someone like a cleric, they have all of their subclass features because they get at level 1. And so what should have happened was that everyone gets their subclass features at the same level.
Yep.
Which should have been level 1. Or level 2 if you're... But it should have been level 1. And we should have made level 1 a more interesting starting point, because right now it's incredibly boring starting at level 1. And so I don't like running one-shots below, 3, because Well, it's just boring for those who don't get their subclass feed.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you. It's meh. I mean, it really is. There's not much excitement. It's just sort of like you could almost make the first 2 levels some sort of twist on a session 0 almost, where you're just basically introducing characters. Each character could have a little piece and tell a little bit about himself and how they do their own little thing. And, oh, now I'm bumped into this person. It's kind of useless. So I liked it starting at 3.
Yeah, and also it's like if you want to start level 1, it was saying that in the guide to Wildemount, you can run their level 1 to adventure thing. There is that if you want to buy another.
All right, so you play some games, you meet your rivals.
And then it's your rivals and you fight to the race to the death.
Mm-hmm. So first actual map you get on this, like is that the biggest thing about
map you get, because you get a map of Jagao, and now you have a map of the Emerald Grotto, where you have to basically race your rivals into a subterranean place. You get to hold your breath the entire time, and deal with a couple of octopi, some swarms of something, and fight a giant shark at the end of it all while underwater.
Yeah, that never works out really well.
But yeah, so it's basically just a skill challenge where each time you get into a new area, you roll some dice. Depending on how you did on the roll, you either get 1 or like 2 or 3 points. And the goal is to have the fewest number of points at the end of this so that you can beat your rivals to the very end.
It's golf.
Yeah, it's golf. And you're supposed to get some sort of medallion from a giant shark, which is a weird way of finding the MacGuffin, because the way you find the MacGuffin is when you kill the shark and you get the thing at the end of the race.
Yeah, what's that called?
During its death throes, it like smashes into a wall, and you find the MacGuffin that way. And I was reading that, and I was like, I don't feel like every table I have would immediately just go to murdering the shark. They would be like, oh, so we need to like tackle the shark, maybe grapple it, and then I can pull off the necklace, and then we'll swim out. It's like, we don't need to kill the giant shark. And it's like, I was already getting like palpitations from that. Just like, oh God.
We would.
Yes, you would. But that's because you are playing a combat focused game.
Yeah, but hey, I tried the last 2 adventures to do something interesting that didn't involve killing the thing.
Maybe not when the boss is there.
It turned out poorly. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then they find, so when the shark dies thrashing into the wall, it crumbles down. And so the rivals are also there at this time. And so when you go in there, there's like the MacGuffin, which is, God, I can't remember what it's called. The Jewel of 3 Prayers, because the guy who wore it prayed 3 times to 3 different.
I'm sure that went over well.
Well, apparently it did until it didn't.
In the Bible, if you do that, God was just like, I'm going to smite you. You're dead. I'm turning a city into salt. Okay, you're a pillar of salt. I'm going to rain down fire and brimstone on your city.
Which brings us to the driving force of this adventure, which is you want to go and rescue an individual known as Elixion. His name has been like lost to thousands of years. He was like 6,000, 7,000 years ago. He strode about the land, helping the gods fight back demons and betrayer gods.
Which you get a little bit of background in the very beginning in chapter 1, which they kind of tell the story of like the gods and what was going on and how he was the hero and then how he got fucked over.
And so you have to kill the shark first.
Yep.
And now if your players are like hesitant about touching this ancient artifact, then your rivals are just like, fuck it, I'll grab it. And so they grab it and they get the vision and are given the quest to take on, to go rescue Elixion. And it's just like, it's kind of funny because the book is like, now if your players don't get it, then you should like stress to them that maybe they should steal it.
Right.
Or, become their companions and support their rivals in finishing out the quest.
So 2 things on that. First, why not just let the rivals fight the shark and hope that it eats them and then be like, cool, we don't have to worry about rivals anymore. And then B, this is the first part of the book where I started to feel, and this carried over and it kind of my feelings got a little stronger on it. The book just railroads you into doing what you have to do.
Oh yeah, this is a great railroad.
Yeah, it's just, I know there's going to be people that are upset about it that love Critical Role and be like, I want to explore more of, like, they want an open world adventure. Mm-hmm. It's not. It's like, if you go off the beaten path, it's just this, it could be a blank void.
I mean, and part of it is just like, it's a book. Like, they can't account for everything. Right. They have a very set story they have to run, and so it's up to the GM to make it not seem like a railroad, but it
is.
Yeah,
that's okay.
But I mean, like that's going to happen with any adventure book. It's always going to be a railroad. It's just how much do you notice? Like in Storm King's Thunder, spoilers for this, it is so much a railroad that when you find a MacGuffin, an airship shows out of nowhere and will take you to one spot on the map that you have to go to next, and they refuse to go anywhere else.
Yes.
And it's just like, the fuck are they doing in this adventure?
Yeah, no, it's sort of like you're on a one-stop train to this place, and fuck you if you don't like it. Oh, I'll crash the airship if you don't. Now, that's a little extreme, and they don't actually do that. But I'm just thinking to myself, that's what would happen.
Yeah, and that doesn't happen just that one time in the adventure. It happens multiple times.
So I guess we'll admit that this book is you have to follow a set path.
Yeah.
I was just thinking to myself that, there's going to be some of these hardcore Critical Role players that are going to be a little upset about that because they're going to want to kind of wander around to see some other stuff, and you can't.
Like, even NPCs aren't really that fleshed out. The only ones that are fleshed out are going to be your rivals. And Elixion at the very end. Everyone else, it's like maybe a couple of sentences, if that, which is, I mean, from what I've seen of Critical Role, like, I don't really feel like if you're going to try and emulate or try to have like those like touching moments, like it's going to require a lot of work from the GM to like come up with motivations for every NPC and all that.
I mean, if you're going to do the book would be 400 pages long if you wanted to do that. Plus, I mean, you're going to have GMs are going to be stressed out enough having to make up funny voices for all of them to blend into the world. And you know what? Not everybody's Matt Mercer. He gets paid to do voices, people. Don't stress out about it.
If you pay me, I'll do voices.
Yeah, I don't pay you, and I don't want you to do the voices.
And so now we have the rivals. Now we have the main, like, we have the catalyst of the adventure, and we have the adventuring group. Depending on how things mix out, you might be friendly with your rivals, which it goes through like every chapter where you meet your rivals. There's like, how do the rivals react to you if you're friendly, indifferent, or hostile towards you? And I was like, by the second time my party meets these rivals, I don't think I'm going to need this information in the book.
Because their murder hobo isn't going to kill them.
They're just going to be dead rivals.
Yep. So there is chapter 2. You have travel.
Yeah, you're on a heroic quest, which is random encounters.
Yeah, but, I mean, cool. I haven't really seen that before. It's something they're incorporating in depth. Yes, you do it in other places, but like you were just talking about, you get in an airship and it goes one place. Yeah. So there is some...
Well, excuse you, Storm King's Thunder, chapter 3 is only locations around the map that you might travel to until the DM allows you to play this story.
I hear what you're saying, but they dive into... And here's the thing that I did enjoy about the book. Hey, we focus on... You have to travel. There's things you have to incorporate, and then, which we'll obviously get into in a little bit, underwater combat. Mm-hmm. They took some of the neglected pieces of D&D at the 5e and kind of tried to incorporate them into the book. I appreciate that. I appreciate what they're doing, because underwater combat gets, 2 paragraphs in the DMG?
It's like 5 bullet points.
Good job. Good job trying to put it in.
I've converted a Paizo Adventure path, Ruins of Aslan, to 5e for my Thursday group, and that's a lot of underwater combat. Yeah. So I've been using those rules a lot.
You keep trying to drown us too. I thought it was
very cute.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I mean, it in a way goes back to some of the older, the older editions, just because. You had to walk to go to places, and there were a zillion charts for random encounters, which, you did. And, you had to keep track of your fucking rations.
Well, it kind of amuses me is that they have about a paragraph that basically says, see the rules for travel pace in the player's handbook. When during that same amount of time, they could have reprinted the rules for travel pace from the player's handbook in here, because it's literally like a paragraph, if that, and there's like a little chart. Yeah. The exploration in 5e is incredibly lacking, and It basically just boils down to random encounters, which they do provide. They provide 8 different random encounters, and what do you know? If you go a slow pace, you get all 8 random encounters.
Yippee.
Which don't really feel that random at that point.
Nope. Yeah. I like that they're doing it. I think they could have done more with it. I mean, tables and charts. Like,
well, it's also like, if you run this adventure and then you run it again, you're probably getting the same encounters again. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, that doesn't really feel that random. It's just preset. It's just, the only random part is, when do you actually get to this encounter during your travels? Well, there's no question you're going to encounter them. It's just when.
Yeah, well, shameless plug. You could always go to the Dumpstat website and look at some of the things you've written about traveling and making travel exciting.
See, I'm already thinking about a third way of doing travel.
I know you are, but you've done a lot of work on that, which I wish there was more in this that kind of thought about some of these things. But at the end of the day, good for them for putting it in. That's my opinion. So, yay, you're in a caravan and you're trudging along, singing 99 bottles of beer on the wall till something comes out and tries to kill you, and then yay.
Yeah. 15 days later, or maybe 9 days later, depending on how fast you travel, you arrive at Bazzoxan. Mm-hmm. The other thing I'd say about travel is I think they needed like something to push them forward for traveling. When you're... This is getting off topic, but like I feel like with exploration type stuff, either you hand wave it if it's not that big of a deal as to when they get there, or there's a countdown and there's a reason why they want to move fast, reason that they want to move forward, in which case, yes, you then focus on it. This adventure doesn't really give you a reason why you should focus on traveling. It's not that exciting.
You could just have your rivals chasing them and you could get there first.
I mean part of it is like, if your rivals took the MacGuffin, the Jewel of Three Prayers, I'm calling it MacGuffin from now on.
Just call it the Jewel.
If your rivals get it, then yeah, you might be like, I'm going to steal it back. And so in which case, yes, you would chase them down and try and take it from them. Which is, that's one way of doing it. Yeah. Though I've already seen several people talking online. It's like, I'm not sure how to get, like, they've already, like, because it's been a week since it's been out, and so they've already done it. And the rivals took the jewel, and my players aren't interested in taking back the jewel. I don't know what to do. And then someone else is like, yeah, I was real worried about that. I'm going to be running it in like a couple of days, and my party's really nice. I'm actually worried that if they get the jewel first, they'll just give it to them.
Oh, boy. Yeah, no. Wow, I can't even. I'll just leave that alone.
So, yeah, that's fun. But anyway, so yeah, we arrive at Bazzoxan, which is maybe the worst place to put a city.
I didn't really think about that, but okay.
It's basically a city, though it has fortress-like walls on the outside when it should have them on the inside, in my opinion. But basically, they're here to protect I don't know if it's like a rift or like a hole in the multiverse, but like demons pour out of there.
I think at one point they'd say it's a rift, but I don't remember.
Yeah, it's like a minor rift where demons sometimes pop out and run about the streets killing everyone because the fortress walls are on the wrong spot in the city, and they should be around the rift, not around the city.
Okay, I get what you're saying now.
When you think about it, it's like, yeah, we built the city with the fortress walls on the outside so that when the demons kill us all, they have a nice fortress that keeps them safe.
Don't these people have anybody that can close the rift?
Apparently not.
Well,
but
shame on them.
I don't know a huge amount about Bazzoxan, so maybe I'm just... Yeah. Maybe the rift is everywhere, and so normally they attack from the outside, but it seems like the way that the story is presented, there's a lot of demon attacks inside the walls.
Yeah, you'd think they might figure that out. But, hey, what do I know? I mean, that could be a piece of Critical Role kind of lore and stuff that we don't know. Yeah. But anyways.
But yeah, so as soon as they arrive, a demon invasion happens.
Of course.
And by that, we mean 5 gibbering mouthers.
Are they demons?
No, they're aberrations.
Yeah, that's right. We just wrote a deep dive on them. That's true.
They aren't demons.
Well,
I don't get it. I want to fight demons. If you tell me there's a demon invasion and then I see a gibbering mouther, I will walk into that gibbering mouther and let it kill me because that's not a demon.
Oh, boy. I guess. I mean, it's not like there's a lack of demons that they could fight.
It's also, you're level 5, there's 5 of you, and you have a CR5 guard to help you, along with 2 CR18s to help you fight 5 CR2 gibbering. Like, how is that a challenge?
Well, that's my issue with, one of my issues with this book, along with, and I've said this before,
the combats.
Yes, just being critical of how they built the creatures in 5e. It's too simple. I mean, if you look at how you're supposed to, build an encounter, the players are gonna win every freaking time unless you roll like me. My biggest issue is armor class. Yay, giving them a lot more hit points. It's built so that players can feel good about themselves when they hit things more. It just takes longer.
Yeah.
Versus there is a lack of having to figure out a way to hit them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's, anyways.
Well, you don't have to worry about tactics. And
Right.
you're just hitting big sacks of hit points.
Well, I wrote a lot about tactics, which obviously are useless because you just can run up and kill shit.
Yeah. So you can also choose not to attack the gibbering
I
mouthers
know,
and
jeez.
run away to the infirmary because you're like, those aren't demons. I only fight demons. And so if you do that, your rivals who also show up at the same time as you are like, yeah, we'll fight. We'll stay and fight the gibbering mouthers. And
I was promised demons.
and somehow, so I don't mean to. So if you don't help out the rivals fighting the gibbering mouth, then there is a consequence for your rivals that you as players that you wouldn't get if you had stayed to help. Mm-hmm. And that consequence is their leader, Ao, I think is how you pronounce it. She gets a mortal wound from a CR2 gibbering mouther when she's a CR5 monster stat block, basically. And it's like their rivals almost die against these gibbering mouthers, and they turn like bitter and sour towards the party because they didn't help them fight the gibbering mouthers. But at the same time, that means there are 6 CR5 heroes, basically, fighting the 5 CR2 monsters. And it's just, how does that make any type of sense?
Oh, let me look at something here real quick.
Okay, you look up something.
Maybe they're all, I don't know. They all have, oh boy, it's kind of hard to, they are all going to fail their DC 10 wisdom saving throws.
That's a real hard DC, Chris.
I
got like a 50-50 shot. Actually, no, it's 55-45.
They get spit on a lot. I don't know. I'm seriously right now. I'm looking through the deep dive we did a couple weeks ago, and I'm trying to figure out. Well, maybe, I don't know. Maybe they thought it was 3E or 4E stat block that they were working from, because there's a lot more damage. There's a lot more to be worried about in those additions.
Well, and that's a problem kind of I noticed throughout it. It's just like the combat's not dangerous. Right. The combat's just there to make you feel good.
Right.
It's you're going to pounce it easily. And so like for first time players, yeah, great. They feel good. For people who have played before or veterans or stuff, they're going like, there's not going to be like that sense of fulfillment when you fight something because nothing's dangerous. Even like the final boss is like, yeah, it's kind of dangerous because we don't get a short rest, but not really.
Yeah. I went back and I'm looking at the 3.5 gibbering mouther. Special attacks, gibbering, obviously. Spittle, which carried through most of the time. Improved grab, engulf. I love engulf, except when I'm a player. Blood drain and ground manipulation. You don't work your way through. No, they don't have a lot of hit points, but you can get really screwed over if you don't do things right. Anyways, all right, so you can piss your rivals off.
And I don't want to spend too much longer in Bazzoxan because we got a lot to cover.
Yeah, so they're in Bazzoxan.
Can I just say something though? And I'm the one that's going to make us drag through this chapter because I find it a little ridiculous. One of the first encounters in the city after dealing with the gibbering mouthers is helping 2 people cremate bodies from fallen warriors and civilians.
So maybe one of those fire spells comes in, except they don't really burn anything.
So you're literally picking up the bodies, tossing it into a crematorium, and just like, how is...
I don't know. It's for the murder hobos. They can feel good about not killing the gibbering mouth.
You have to spend hours helping them, and this is kind of gruesome. It might hit a little too close to home for some people.
Piles of dead
especially
bodies.
People who like hate the idea of cremation or anything like that.
No,
but
that's
you
ongoing.
have to do this encounter because you need some of the lore drop.
Move, forward. I don't know. I'm getting cremated. Forget that.
But anyway, so like we cycle through Bazzoxan. This is not a playthrough type thing. And so you have to go into a temple where you can hopefully find a little bit more information about the jewel. Once you dive through this temple, I think there are actually demons in here, if I remember correctly. And at the bottom, you find like a secret entrance to a place where you can activate your jewel. And now this is a vestige. So in Critical Role, vestiges are these things that you have to unlock their power as you go along. And there's 3 stages for this jewel. There's like the sleepy state.
Yeah, there's dormant, awakened.
I said sleepy.
And which is a topic for another time, but I enjoy that.
Yeah, dormant, awakened, and then it's like blessed or something like that. Yeah. And so like once you get down to the bottom of it, you get your jewel not sleepy.
What if you don't have the jewel because you?
Well, you see, you still go down there so you can kill the rivals that have the jewel who are trying to unlock it and do this big good thing for the world by releasing Elixium.
Maybe they're just standing there and they can't do it, and finally one of the players is like, "Give me that."
Yeah, pretty much. But so like you down there and you unlock the jewel if you have the jewel. Mm-hmm. And so if you have the jewel, the time that you unlock it, that's when the rivals just pop up and they're like, "Give me back that jewel."
It's weird.
And they have some random person with them. The party can then try and convince the rivals to not attack them, but to help them. And depending on how they do it, the person with the rivals drops, because this is like a, I don't know, like a hairy...
I thought we weren't going to spend that much time on this.
See, this is like the Three Stooges routine where where that person picks up a clay tablet, drops 2 more clay tablets on the ground, and then teleports away. And then this is how you get teleported to Ank'Harel, because you're just like, cool, I'll just use this person's clay tablets that they dropped on the ground because
I'm being railroaded to go to this place.
God, like, reading that is just like so frustrating. Like, we already had a travel montage. Why can't we do another travel montage to this place? Yep. Why does this feel so restrictive? And even if you don't use those tablets, if you go into town and you talk to a couple of people that you've allied with, they're like, "Oh, I'll just teleport you to Ank'Harel."
It's the hand wave that you were talking about before. It's like, hey, we did travel, hand wave.
I mean, there's a good way of hand waving travel, and then there's just Three Stooges dropping 2 teleportation tablets on the ground and being like, "Whoopsie loo, I'm so clumsy." I
just was like, yeah, whatever. I just kept reading. All right, so you eventually, no matter what you try to do, get teleported somewhere.
Yep. I mean, you can try and avoid it, but then that's the end of the event for you, basically, until you arrive in Ank'Harel.
Well, I only have 2 things to say about this, so I'll let you talk.
No, go for it.
Well, my first thing is the picture. The opening picture when you get into the chapter. If you open the book, it's a page. It's a full page picture of this city. This is, to me, the worst piece of art in the book. I liked the art. The city is. I'm like, what the hell is this? There's a city. There's supposed to be buildings that looks like there's little clay obstacles. It's like a maze you got to walk through.
Well, I don't have a problem
with that. And then
what?
Why are the ships pirate ships?
They're not pirate ships. They're just
they look like pirate ships. They look like pirate ships.
They're flying through the air. I don't have a problem with this artwork. I didn't like most of the artwork in here.
Oh, this was the only piece I really had an issue with.
There's
the rest was
several character pieces where I'm like, I feel like you forgot to put detail on them. Because it just looked like you used the paint bucket tool.
Well, I can't draw.
I mean, neither can I, but I'll still judge.
I appreciated it.
I mean, it's like I don't mean to be mean to like the artists and stuff, but it's just like. Everything else is like highly detailed, and then there's just this one, and like it stands out in a weird way.
Well, we're also spoiled because when we do art, we have some great artists that we can reach out to that are smaller, unknown people that do some amazing things for us. Anyways, the other thing that I really liked about this was the Gazetteer.
Oh yeah. So this chapter has not just your jobs to do in the city, but information on the city, which is good because it would be really hard to run this because I don't even think the Explorer's Guide to Wildemount has that much information on Ank'Harel.
I don't think so either.
Actually, it's Wildemount, so I don't think it has any information because that's a separate continent.
Yeah, I don't.
I could be wrong though. I don't remember that book.
So, great. Why do they have to call it a gazetteer? I don't like that. But
You don't like gazetteer?
no, as a word, it's weird.
Or are you uppity about your words?
Yeah, maybe. So I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
Put a visitor's guide in.
It's actually useful, unlike the one from Baldur's Gate.
Mm-hmm. I think they did a good job with it. I thought it was an excellent addition to what would have been a really short chapter if they hadn't included it.
Yeah, and so in this chapter, you have to join one of 3 factions, or you
don't.
Well, if you don't, the DM has a lot more work to do, and also you're likely to get in trouble with the city because only a certain faction is allowed to be operating under the sea. Under the city.
Who cares? It's like when you play a video game. You're supposed to join a clan online game, and you're just like, nope, I'm going my own way. You guys can all kill me, but don't care. I'm just gonna keep respawning.
When I first got this book, I was flipping through it, and I landed on a page that said Sigil District, and I was like, Sigil? We're going to Sigil?
Nope.
We aren't.
Nope. Good try, but nope.
Sad. But yeah, so you have to join one of 3 factions, or the DM comes up with their own storyline. But basically, it's just, whichever faction you pick, it's just a way to get you to Kael Maro, beneath the city.
No, so I'm not trying to say it.
Explore the ruins, and then make your way into the Netherdeep. Ta-da! And also the factions are there in case you're like, I don't want to go to the Netherdeep. Fuck that place. That place is awful. They're the ones that would be like, we need you to go into the Netherdeep, or else you're kicked out of our fancy faction, and you have to return your fancy hats.
What do you think about the different story tracks?
They're fine. There wasn't really anything that imaginative out of any of the story tracks for each of the factions. They're just kind of basic. Oh, there's a spy. You got to find the spy. Here's a fetch quest. Go get us an elephant that's been corrupted.
I know a lot of people like factions. They think it's kind of neat.
These factions didn't really do that much to me. Like, so it's the Cabal Soul faction. There's the Allegiance of Alluvium or whatever.
There's a pronunciation guide in the book.
Well, I just have to remember what they're called, which is the issue because I don't remember what they're called.
Oh, I don't either, so that's why we bought the book, right?
Yeah, that's why we bought the book. There's the Allegiance. Oh, and then the other one is Vermilion. The Court of the Vermilion something. And they are, Consortium something. Who knows?
Like I said, I don't really know.
They all just kind of blended together in my mind. Not like none of the 3 really stood out to me. I assume a lot of people will be excited for Cabal Soul because that's from campaign 2. There was Marisha Ray's character was a monk of that faction, so I assume a lot of people will be excited for that one. And basically, that is the best faction, because it's the one that wants to get rid of the rudium, which is this magical... Yeah,
which we didn't really talk about, which is kind of important to talk about in the beginning.
Yeah, well, I mean, it doesn't really take into the story until now.
Yeah, there's talk about it in the intro, but... So,
the Netherdeep is housing the tortured form of Elixir. Isn't that right, Chris?
Yes. Sure.
It's housing the tortured form of Elixir. I don't want you to think I'm just talking.
No, well, our listeners are used to that.
So it housed the forms of a tortured Elixian within the Netherdeep, and its pain and grief and emotions create what's known as rudium. And rudium is this like red corrupting material, kind of somewhat created by the moon Rudius that circles around Exandria, and is like, if you're born under the red moon, then you're supposed to be like fated for like awful but great things, kind of like Voldemort.
Yeah, all I can think about is it's just sort of, there were 2 things that popped into my mind when I was reading about it. One, basically you get infected with nuclear waste, and then 2, and this is going to be an odd reference, the way they describe it about like infecting your veins and you have the red coursing through you. I'm like, okay, that's neat. And I remember seeing that just recently on the who is it? I think it's the Netflix show Arcane from the League of Legends, where like it's the same kind of thing. There's
it's always red or black infecting.
Yeah, well, this is green, which I've seen before, and you basically Hulk out and get superpowers. That's what I picture.
Never a nice lilac that infects you.
No, it's not like a pretty shade of maybe like
shell green.
Yeah, like a pink. No.
Just imagining pink like infecting you and just like Hulk out.
Yeah, it's just like I can't take you seriously.
Yeah, and so like it infects everything that it kind of touches, and there can be bad things for your character if you get infected by it. Like you get like a new flaw or something that you play out.
Yep. I mean, yay! Let's keep going to get into the exciting parts because we're finally down.
Capital Soul wants to destroy it. The other two factions are interested in selling it.
We're getting so close to.
Yeah. So you join a faction, or you don't, who knows? And as you Cobalt Soul, I kept saying Capital Soul, Cobalt Soul like this time.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, you get down into the Drowned City, which the map kind of confused.
Hey, let me take a look. I don't remember it.
And I'll throw this map up in the show notes. It's on page 125.
Okay.
And so what's actually kind of interesting, I did kind of enjoy, kind of didn't enjoy. But there is instead of forcing you to swim around in the forbidden, the hidden city, they have like these walls of force that keep all the water out, but like living organisms can pass through the walls without any problems.
Yep.
And they put this up here because the entire city is flooded. And so you have very specific paths that you can take through the city that have been like explored. And then once you get out of the explored zone, you then have to deal with the dangers of the city. Aboleth, there's all sorts of horrific sea monsters. But as I was reading how these magic fields work, I just imagined the place must stink. Because there must be thousands of dead fish that just swam through the wall, plopped onto the ground, and are just like dying there.
Well, yeah, I guess so. Or, I just picture them like floating through and just like shooting through and landing on the other side.
Well, and I'll tell you something else that popped in my mind is, so if you're like swimming around and then you walk through it, since it stops all water, does it just like instantly dry you out? And if you leave your mouth, like if you keep your mouth open while you walk through it, are you going to get dry mouth?
Wow, you went into you went to strange places that I did not go when I read
And also,
this.
if you have like a wineskin or anything like that on you, is like the wineskin also out of its content?
Boy,
how does that work with all the water in your body?
I don't. You really went down a weird path with this. So glad to see that was your focal point.
Well, I was thinking this would be a great way to shower because you could just like wash your hair and then you like walk through and then you just have nice dry hair.
Yeah, my thing was the uncharted waters. I was just like, okay, so this is another way to push you back into the main adventure because you go off, you're going to get screwed. And then, I mean, it's better than having them, okay, so you decided to go here. Let's see, you went how many squares? It's flat. You just fell off the end of the thing and you're plummeting into the abyss.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I get it. Cool.
Well, and I'm also confused by this map because in like the first area you go to, there's like these walls of force. So there's like no walls between you and what you're looking at, as far as I can tell. I could be wrong, but if you look to your left about 80 feet, there is this massive red spike shooting out of the ground. And I was looking through all the flavor text throughout the entire thing. Is like, is no one going to address what this looks like?
Nope.
Is no one going to like, do my players not see this yet? Because it's only 80 feet away. It's not that crazy far away.
Well, don't they have something in here about the how far you can see? They do.
Yeah, but you can see that far. Or if you take 10 steps through the water, you'll see it.
No, it's murky water. So I think you are limited to, 20 feet?
But there's this massive thing that's like
gaping maw in the middle of it.
Across, and it's just like these red spikes shooting up with like the portal to the Netherdeep there. And it's just like, how come this isn't in any of the flavor text?
Well, they're so focused, they're just looking forward the entire time.
Yeah. So I mean, Chris, what do we do in this?
And don't.
In this chapter?
No,
okay.
you have to get to the maw in the middle. I mean, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, it's kind of a circular route to get there that they think you're going to take.
Yeah, I know. It's just like, no, how about I just go directly towards it? Oh, wait, but you can't see it. There you go.
Yeah.
That's why you have to go the longest way possible to get there.
Maybe it's underground and I just missed it, but it's weird.
Yeah, it's kind of, and like, what kind of portal to a new place doesn't glow some sort of color, right? I mean, there's got to be.
Yeah, if you're a portal,
what's that red
legally
light?
required to glow.
You're like, what's that glowing red light that's coming from the middle of the map? I liked swimming. I thought it adds a piece that is a point of difference for the adventure. I can't remember. I should have taken notes. Is this where they put in the issue with pressure?
No, that's once you get into the Netherdeep.
Netherdeep, gotcha. Which I'm sure you'll touch on.
Nether region.
I liked it. It's horrible, but I just picture you getting crushed.
Yeah, and so you're actually supposed to do like several faction jobs down here until you finally get to the crack to the Netherdeep.
Yep.
And the reason you do that is because you want Iridium weapons or armor, which allow you to journey into the Netherdeep without being without taking what is like 25 d6 worth of damage every minute from like the crushing pressure and weight of responsibility that your family hoists upon you. I mean, the crushing water pressure.
The crushing water pressure? Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's the Netherdeep. It's crushing you with water.
So,
and not responsibilities that you owe.
The thing about the biggest thing I have, that's a horrible way to die. Excuse me. The thing I have, why is this here?
The Netherdeep?
Yeah. No.
It sounds cool.
The Drowned City.
Because you need a way to get to the Netherdeep.
That couldn't be in the city?
Well, you want it hidden, and you need more water.
There's a rift in the middle of the city that is releasing demons. There could
not that many demons.
Could take gibbering mouthers.
No, that's Balzozan.
I know.
This is a different city.
Yeah, but you just skip all this bullshit and use that.
Well,
to get
because
here.
Ankarel, it was in campaign 1. Everyone's excited. They want to come here.
That's why.
That's why it's Critical Role.
I know, but I don't know. It just.
I mean, I think one of the things about Critical Role is their adventures always takes them to different places. They're never in like one city for a very long time.
True.
Each adventure arc is like a different area.
Now, and here's the other thing. So you're going through. Granted, the things you got to do aren't that hard.
Yeah. Easy encounters.
Yeah. Why?
Secret doors.
I would always assume that, okay, hey, we need some stuff because we didn't think about it when we came down here. Can we go back and buy stuff in the city above us?
Yeah. I mean, it assumes that your players are like constantly going back and forth from the city down here.
That's bullshit.
Which is, well, I mean, some people don't like the idea of like long resting while you're in doing like a dungeon dive until you have to, and then other people are like, well, we did one encounter, so let's go back up, take a rest so I can get all my spells back.
It's like, I guess to me, it's sort of like the same thing that you were saying about the travel when you're riding you're caravanning. I'm just gonna call it caravanning. There's no, one encounter, back up, hang out. There should be a time. They should have to get there within a certain amount of time. Otherwise, you can just drag this out forever. Right. Now, granted, you're just going to be like, great, okay, you're back. You take a long rest, you go back. But
again,
it's like,
there's no time limit on this. In fact, like in between each faction job, it's supposed to be like a week of downtime. And so you do like what amounts to like an hour of work, even at the table, where you have like one combat and that's it. And then you have to wait a week until you get your next job from the faction. And so, you're spending like months here. Yeah. And it's just like this, like there's no pressure here. Mm-mm. There's no, beyond the crushing pressure of the water. But like there's no other reason for you to be like, we should really get this guy's suffering done with.
See, and to me that opens up a can of worms where, okay, so all right, we're down here. Fantastic. We're going to head back up and hang out and then come back down. You're opening up the possibility for and I know you say this a lot, for the DM to have to do a lot of work because they're up there, they're killing time. They're going to, especially, people that like Critical Role, they're going to want to do shit.
Yeah, they're going to want to kill the ruler of this city because it's like an ancient copper dragon or something.
Yeah, and they're going to be like, give me more detail. Well, we have a week. Can I wander around and see what else is going on? It's just like,
no. I'm going to finish up this adventure.
Yeah, it's like, no, you can't. You get kidnapped by a rival faction, and then they let you go, and you go back. No, it's just, I wish they had to, either one of two things.
Well, and
skip this whole thing, or there's got to be a time limit before they get down there.
And by the time you get into the Netherdeep, the jewel should have reached its third form.
Right.
Yeah, as you go through the Netherdeep, you find memories of Elixion's past. You get a deeper understanding of who he was and what sacrifices he had to make, how selfless he was, all that type stuff. And so, like, it's definitely building up, like, this tragic hero the entire time. And then so once you make your way through the Netherdeep...
Let me ask you a question. Were you excited that there was an aboleth? You like those creatures. They're hideous.
The aboleth doesn't really...
No,
it's
it
not
doesn't.
a very interesting use of an aboleth.
It's not, but...
The aboleth is just like, I'm actually Elixion. I'm going to kill you now.
Yeah.
And that's like the entire aboleth job, where I prefer my aboleths to be like, you know, like corrupting people, people go missing, like having these plots and things instead of just, I'm just a roadblock.
Yeah. Okay, I see that. I just figured I'd ask.
You crawl through the Netherdeep, digging into Elixion's memories until, well, you have to collect fragments of like sadness. Yep. Which give you a power and also a flaw. So it's kind of like if you've ever played Tomb of Annihilation, you can find like the trickster spirits who infect you, and you get a technically stronger abilities than what the fragments give you, and a flaw. A weaker flaw, actually.
It's like getting a cursed weapon.
Yeah. I was wondering if it was going to be the same thing as Tomb of Annihilation, but it wasn't, so that's cool. Work your way through the Netherdeep, fighting awful creatures, and then, like, there is as you get to the final area, the Heart of Despair, you have to fight your rivals one last time. And this is either, like, a fight to the death, if they're indifferent or hostile towards you, or just no, you can't be the heroes. We're gonna be the heroes. And like the way they write it is just like they've been corrupted by a, you know, like it's just, but it's also just like, why is your first response when you're friendly with us to just want to murder us?
They don't want to murder you. They just, you know,
knock
they want
you unconscious and let the awful creatures of the Netherdeep eat you. Yeah. I agree.
I don't know. They you gotta have some. There's gotta be an end story with them.
There are, like, throughout the Netherdeep, there's like a section that's like, yeah, you should really start trying to get them ready to kill their rivals.
I know.
And it's like, so what the Netherdeep's going to do is kind of make the players angry at their rivals. Like, maybe the rivals will tell them that one area there's a treasure that they couldn't get to, when in fact, when the party goes there, instead of a treasure, there's going to be a massive monster. But the rivals didn't lie to them. It's just the Netherdeep that wants the players to kill their rivals.
Yeah, it's like you went from chapter 1 where they're like, you did a great job on that, to we're gonna murder you,
kill your friends.
Yeah. I don't know, every time, you know, it's just bizarre. It's like, okay, rivals appear, and then nothing, rivals appear. I mean, every time I was reading this, when we get to the rivals, all I could think of, again, another strange reference, did you ever see the movie Little Nicky? I think that's the movie. There's one of them. It's one of the Adam Sandler movies in it, like where, oh no, it's not. It's I think it's Mr. Deeds, okay. Where he, you know, he's just like in the middle of the room, and then all of a sudden, like, he'll turn, and John Turturro's there as the butler going, hello, and it scares the shit out of him every time. And he's just like, how the hell are you doing this? Like, they just pop up out of thin air. They're just like, all of a sudden, you're like, where the hell did you guys come from? So that was my that. I don't have a problem with that. I'm excited that you're finally like, yes, we have to fight the rivals. They've been bugging the shit out of me this entire time.
I finally get to kill them, and
we're going to slaughter you. Okay, so I like that part. They just, I don't know. I didn't like the flow of it, I guess.
So once you get through your rivals, leaving their corpses behind to be eaten by the Netherdeep inhabitants, then make your way into what's known as the Heart of Despair,
dun, dun, dun.
Which is a massive, like, underground lake thing with, like, islands. 3 islands, and then there's, like, a statue at the center of it.
Such a weird map.
It is a weird map, and this is where you fight a 3-stage boss. So, like, the idea is, like, you can spend time looking at the other islands, seeing what's there, and then once you're ready to fight Elixion, you destroy his statue. Which, I mean, honestly, if you're destroying a statue of me, I'm gonna, like, be a little angry about it, so I understand why he goes out there and tries to kill them.
Yeah, hey, look at the pretty statue.
Well, before the fight, you can decide if, and this is kind of a weird way of introducing this into like D&D. Like this, I don't feel like D&D is the right system for this, but your players can decide to go ahead and release Elixion. Tell them, you suffered enough, you're free to go out into the world, which seems like the right thing to do. But if you do, he's still corrupted, so he just goes out into the world and starts destroying everything. Yep. End of game. Congratulations. Yep. If you like say no and you're like trying to talk to him, all that stuff, he turns into a massive slug thing that tries to eat you. You then have to destroy this form, reducing his hit points down to 0. He then transforms into basically like a stoic angel, which you then have to fight, reducing it to 0 hit points. And then he turns into an old fighter, which you then have to fight, reduces the hit points, kill him, all that stuff. Except if your players spend a full action talking to Elixion during a fight, which is not something that they're going to be used, and try and make like charisma checks to try and tell him like this isn't your fault, you're taking all of his raw trauma and like trying to play therapist in the middle of a combat. If you succeed on your checks, then you deal damage to his form and like you slowly start uncorrupting him.
Makes sense. I mean, you just slaughtered a bunch of, like, rivals, so you've had to change a heart, and you're going to be like...
It's not your fault, the rivals.
Yeah, it's sort of like, we feel bad now. We can help.
But the only way to... So, you have to do that for his first 2 forms, and then his 3rd form, if you do that, he is no longer Elixion the Dispossessed. Instead, he is, like, Elixion the Deemed, or... Yeah, Elixion Redeemed. And the Absolved is his name. And he just turns into like this old hermit man. Yeah. And it's just like your fight with him was more helping him work through his trauma, which is not... I can't imagine there's been other D&D adventures that have done something like that. But it's also like that there isn't a way in the book where it tells you how to explain that to your players that they should try using their words and attempt charisma checks. And so it's on the game master to be like, hey guys, I really think you guys, instead of casting like that haste spell you wanted, how about you just spend an action talking to him? And it's like, I think that's a trap. You're trying to trap me.
Yeah, no, like I said in the campaign we're running now, I tried that, and then someone else died, and I got in a lot of trouble for it.
You didn't roll high enough, Chris.
They were just like, why are you not trying to kill it? And I was like, because I'm trying something different instead, and I'm sorry you died.
Weirdly enough, so Hagen Baron doesn't want to be redeemed.
It worked for 1 round.
That's fair. It didn't attack you, and I think that's what you should focus on.
Yeah, well, maybe, that was my secondary motivation behind it. So,
it's definitely a weird way. And also, I think, like, this entire story, like, it requires a lot of the game master having to talk with the table, like, out of game and be like, for, like, the best possible ending, like, the game master has to either, like, hint so hard that they're basically just telling them what's supposed to happen in the book, or they're just not going to have a good ending to the story. Like, it's going to be neutral. Like, we killed Elixion. We didn't actually ever redeem him from it. And it's like, that's fine, I guess. But, like, if you want the best possible ending, like, you have to...
Be nice.
Well, it's more like you have to remove how D&D works. D&D is a combat game. And so to get the best ending, you have to stop playing a combat game.
Yeah, because this goes back to what I keep saying. They're moving away from combat, even though, like you said, it's a combat game. They want people around the table to talk, to be involved in a story that doesn't require you to murder things.
Except for your rivals.
Even though they're trying to murder you. Plus, it fits into the from what I've read, that's what Critical Role is.
Like redeeming someone from trauma. That's not really what the game system sells it. Like, that's not even close to what the game system sells it for. That's something that'd be better, like, delved into with like something like Monster Hearts.
But that's what they're trying to transition the game into.
Yeah.
And I think that when we get 6th edition or whatever the hell they're gonna call it,
maybe we'll actually have rules for social encounters.
Yes, we're gonna see a shift from combat to an interactive story.
I can't wait to repeat what you just said back to you when it comes out, and it's just more combat.
That'd be awesome.
He'd just be like, well, I tried.
I like killing things. No, don't get me wrong. I don't like the fact that they're moving in this direction.
Well, I don't have a problem if that's the direction they want to move to. Unfortunately, their game system does not support that.
Nope.
You make a charisma check. And wow, that's exciting. That's actually not that interesting to
Nope.
just roll a single die, and that's either you succeeded or you didn't. And that's the only thing that happens with that single skill check. And
Well,
that's not an interesting way of doing a social encounter.
Right, but that's going to be my thought is going to be one of two things. They're either going to just ignore it, which that's what they probably will, social encounters, or they're going to play heavier on the fact, which is wrong. They're going to be like, okay, so describe to me how you like what you're going to do, what you're going to say, so on and so forth when you make that charisma check. And then the DM is going to decide and give you maybe advantage or maybe some sort of bonus. And my issue with that is, great, that's wonderful for those kind of checks, but you can't be like to a player, okay, make a strength check or
how do you do it?
Acrobatics check.
Back.
It's like, okay, so acrobatics check. I've got an obstacle course set up in the backyard. Let me see if you can do this. That's not how it works. So I don't know what they're going to do, but
yeah,
anyways. So yeah.
Yeah, there's three different endings. There's the bad ending where if you die to Elixion or you set him free before you address his trauma, then he just starts fucking up the world.
All I can think of when that happens is, you ever see Cabin in the Woods?
Yes,
That's what I
love
think
Cabin
of.
in the Woods.
It's sort of like, I wish there was a scene where they just released all the monsters first and killed everybody. It's just sort of like the giant thing just erupts from the earth, and you're at the end of the movie, you're like, oh fuck, everybody dies because they screwed up. That's what I picture this as.
There's the neutral ending where you kill Elixion instead of dealing with his trauma, which, understandable. He has a lot of baggage.
Yeah, he does.
In which case, nothing really changes. The iridium disappears, and that's good.
It's and you're charging what 100 gold pieces an hour for this therapy. I think that's fair.
And then the best ending is you help Elixion get through his trauma. He becomes an old man, and he gets to live out the rest of his days walking the world, going on his own adventures.
Going on a roundabout?
Yeah, going on a roundabout. So now he gets to enjoy his
Walkabout.
vacation.
Walkabout.
And so if your rivals are still alive somehow,
Nah.
then they're there's 9 different paths that they can take based off of if they're friendly, hostile, indifferent, and if Elixion was released, died, or was absolved of his traumas.
They just die along with the rest of the world. So
that's like the end of the adventure. And I do like it offers so many different endings that could happen.
The thing that I'm making a lot of movie references today, but when I was reading like the stages when you go through like Elixion the Tormented, then he's callous, and you have all these different emotional states. I'm like, great, so they ripped off Inside Out. Where they just got the emotion in its head. It's like he's angry, and then he could be sad, and then it's like, okay, so each one of the emotions peers out, and I just want one of those little characters to pop out.
That's the adventure. So I guess now let's just kind of talk about our favorites, least favorites, if we recommend this adventure. Anything that stood out to you that you want to talk about? Like, I didn't like any of the battle maps because they all kind of ugh.
I want to look up one thing. Horizon Back Tortoise.
Oh yeah,
that's worse than a dragon turtle, and you know how I feel about that.
That was first debuted in the Wildemount.
Horrifying. I do like the fact that a family of goblins lives on the back of them, but no, you're gonna put that in there just to like. All of my characters have a phobia of dragon turtles, and I don't know why.
Chris has a phobia of dragon turtles.
I don't know why. I do know why. Story for another time. It involves me, young rowboat, snapping turtle. I think it's well founded, but I do like the fact that there's like a family of goblins living in the back of it. I don't like the picture because I'm like, it brings back bad childhood memories. Anyways, so go ahead and kick us off. Likes, dislike.
Well, I'll let you know.
We'll give it a ranking.
I was just thinking about this on the drive over here to record this. You always hear like RPG horror stories about how a DM has a single DMPC that is like their character that like drives the plot forward, is like the Superman. And this adventure, you get 5 of them.
Yeah, but they all don't.
No,
they're not Superman.
That kind of like I was like looking around, and I've already seen people talking about how they're remaking all of the rivals as like actual characters, like they're building them as if you would build a DM.
Yeah, there's levels to the characters.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that way they can make them like quote unquote real characters, and that way the DM can play them as actual characters instead of just monster stat blocks. And it's just like, I feel like you're now, like, there's going to be a lot of people who see, oh, I have a group of 5 rivals and I'm remaking them as character sheets. Like, you're no longer making the table the main characters. Instead, there's going to be this real problem of DMs making the main characters the rivals because they're the characters they've made.
And that's what that is a piece of this that I've heard a lot of people talk about, where it's just like, you're the secondary part of the story. I don't know. Your rivals is because outside of the 10% of DMs, you're included, where they like just DMing and they'd rather do that than play. All you do is hear people bitch about, oh, I got a DM again. Oh, why can't we find a DM? So this is the solution to that. I'd be like, great. So you got a DM. We feel bad for you. You have now 5 of your own characters that you get to play and torture the other party with. So you are still the center of attention.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, the rival thing is interesting, but I feel like it's a good, like, it can be prone to abuse if DMs go into this with the wrong idea. And also, I think with the rivals being on the front cover of the book, it sends the wrong message to the players. Either that they are the villains of the story and need to be defeated, or that they're the main character of the story, and that the table is just there to help them accomplish their goals.
So it's sort of like when we're playing, and it's just sort of like, wait a minute.
Yes, you guys are always the bad guys.
We're the bad guys.
But otherwise, like, I think it's a fine adventure. It doesn't excite me. I don't really care for the emotional trauma storyline that comes in at the end, because it's not like that wasn't really part of any of the marketing or anything. Nope. And so this like, the trauma bit is just like, it that does not interest me to play D&D with. And if I was a player and I didn't know anything about this, and then all of a sudden I have to redeem this person as his therapist, it's like, well, I'm coming in here to escape, feeling bad about things or having these type of emotions. I don't really want to be someone else's therapist in here.
The whole point at the end of your adventure is to find the big bad guy,
so that you feel good. Instead of this is like, well, I killed him, but now I feel even worse than I did before. Thanks a lot, DM. And I mean, like, there's definitely like groups that would love that. They're like, oh, this is like such like a deep, big, bad, evil guy. Like, he has so many nuances, and it's like, well,
I blame your generation.
We're more in touch with our feelings, I guess. Except for me, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not exactly a story that I'm excited to run, and I don't see myself really ever picking up this book again.
Okay.
But what about you, Chris?
The first thing that popped into my head and I'll touch on Rivals, it seemed like they took the now I can't think of the word. I was just thinking about it. The companions, what were they called? That they just added sidekicks. It's like they took sidekicks and were just like, oh, we've heard that 5 people actually like sidekicks, so we're going to take it to the next level. It just felt like a progression of sidekicks that, the DM, like you said, the DM gets to play characters. I've heard a lot about they seem like the focal part of the story. They just appear so strangely all the time. I just feel like they're just another set of, they are an encounter of, to me, it's just always struck me like they're an encounter. They're a monster encounter where you run into them and they run away. And then
they're very violent for some reason. They keep wanting to, like, not necessarily kill you, but knock you unconscious every time
they're just an ongoing encounter where, that doesn't happen in D&D a lot, where it's like they get to escape. And then
they don't believe in using words to solve
I know, which is weird.
Solve their fights. They just go straight to casting spells and murdering people.
My biggest, not issue, but the thing that I kept thinking when I was reading this, and it sort of contradicts what they kind of want to do, where, to your point, it's weird. There's a lot of interaction, and then the end is odd. Yeah. But I get it. Because the whole game, because you're so narrow focused, you can go off and do little side quest kind of things. There's little bits and pieces that you can do, but realistically, there's one game path you're supposed to be following. It felt like a video game. It really did. And then when I got to the end and they had 3 different options, all I could think about was Mass Effect. Mass Effect, video games a lot of times will be, you have different options. Or like Witcher, where you get to have these different, you get to choose different things, and as you choose them, it changes how the ending is. It really does. And then you're like, well, damn it, now I got to run through the whole thing again and choose something different. It just felt like a video game. It felt that's kind of, I felt like I was either running Mass Effect or Witcher by the time I got to the end of it. It's like, oh, okay, I've done all this stuff, made it to the end, and I can choose one of 3 endings. And if I choose wrong, which I'm probably going to because I'm going to kill him, I just wasted all my time because I fucked up the ending. Unless, of course, I like raining down destruction upon the world, and I have no issue with that. And it's only a year, right? I mean, it only happens for a year. And I love how they tie it in where it's sort of like if you don't get the good ending, then they're like, and this could be a way for you to continue with these characters to level 20 and by creating your own adventures. It's like, thanks. Now I get to do more work, 7 more levels of work, because now these players have fallen in love with these characters. They're their own, season 1 characters from Critical Role. That's how they've seen them. So they want to go to 20, and the DMs are just like, fuck. Do I have a problem with it? No, I don't. That's all I could think of where it was, how it was structured. It is what it is. If you like that, and a lot of people do. I mean, I played both those games. Cool. It just always frustrated me at the end where I never picked the right thing, and the ending was so. It was such a letdown. Yeah, it's like, where was my save point again? Can I go back to like my second save point in the back? It was just such a letdown. Yeah. And,
it's also not like you can replay this adventure again and go for the good ending where it's like, yeah, it took us a year to get to this point. I don't think I can convince another 4 people to play this game for it.
And there's the other thing I was thinking of. I've never thought of a typical, and I didn't realize this, a typical table's 4 people. This has 5 characters. Okay, but that never struck me because I've always thought of a typical table as 5 people.
Interestingly, it actually specifies this adventure is designed for 5 players and a DM, and so if you have less than that, you're supposed to take away one of the rivals, or if you have more than that, you're supposed to add on rivals.
And they suggest a twin.
Yeah, one of them has a twin. That way you don't have to find artwork for them.
I know
they're just mirror copies.
I guess to me I always pictured a party being. I've always tried to play with a party of 5 players, and for this, that felt weird to a lot of people because it was like, oh, that's different than a party of 4, and I'm like, really? So that was the only other thing.
Every other adventure says, this is designed for a party of 4 to 6.
Right. So I don't know. It was fine to me. Didn't rock my world, but. I don't know. So if you scale of 1 to 5, I guess that's how we rate things. What would you give it on a scale of 1 to 5?
See, the issue that I'm facing is I have no interest in playing or running this, but I know other people would love this. And so if I, if I said 2, I feel like that's doing a disservice to people who'd be excited by this.
This is your opinion.
I feel like I have to say 3 for me. It is an adventure. It is written. There's a couple of there's always going to be a couple of spelling or grammar issues throughout. It is, there's a lot of nice artwork. There's a lot of, there's battle maps. I wouldn't say that they're great. And there's a lot of resources in there for the DM. So yes, you can run this adventure. So you get several points for that. I would call it 3 out of 5 from me.
Okay. I can see that. Yeah, I feel like if I watch Critical Role on any level, and this doesn't motivate me to do that.
Yeah. There wasn't anything in here that may motivate me to want to watch Critical Role.
But I feel like if I knew more, if I was to your point, if I had done that, if I was a critter, then I'd be excited for it, and I'd be probably a 4.5. For me, it's gonna be a 3.5, just because. Yeah. I feel like they put more effort into this on the things I like, lore, fleshing out a little more detail. Don't like the whole railroading issue. I like it would have been nice if they included
here's some ideas that could happen if they decide to go off them.
The rivals. I've heard a lot of negative about it. I feel kind of neutral about them. Yeah, but I will say I was impressed that they took the time to be like, hey, we're going to level these characters up. There's 3 different stat blocks in there for characters. So they level up. I'm like, well, that's actually thinking it through and not just like you always love to do, putting the onus on the DM and just be like, all right, so you need to level them up in a progression. No, they provide that guideline for you. So I like the fact that they put the effort into it. And honestly, I'll chalk that up to probably Mercer if I had to. It's his world. You can tell, I think his passion for the world and his love for something he created comes through in some way in this book. I envision him going back and just being like, hey, you know what? This isn't going to work. Can we change it? And having a direct influence on it. And I respect that. So 3.5, you know, I feel like if I knew more about Critical Role, I'd probably be more.
So from us, 6.5 out of 10. I mean, I guess, if you have no idea about Critical Role and you're like, I need an adventure to run, should I pick this up or something else? I'd pick up the other thing. Unless you're really excited to run Trauma at your table.
It feels like there should be like a disclaimer. I mean, they have all these different like disclaimers now in adventures. It's like, if people are having emotional trauma at your table.
At the beginning, it does talk about talk
that's
to your
true.
players about what any trigger type stuff. If you're excited by Critical Role though, and you're just like, I just want to do any adventure in Critical Role, yeah, this will be fun for you. But otherwise, it's interesting what they were doing. I see what they were trying to do, but I don't know, kind of felt.
I appreciated some of the things they added in there. You know, traveling.
I mean, the most I'm going to use from this, because I don't like any of the magic items in here. The most I'm going to use from here are a couple of new monsters.
All right, so there it is. The call of Critical Role Call of the Netherdeep. Yeah. All right. Anything else that you need to talk about today, Steven?
No. Next time we talk, there isn't any new releases, so we'll figure something out and talk about. Maybe we'll be talking about that new Skirmish game that's coming out by WizKids.
Yeah, that could be cool. That could definitely be cool. All right, we'll figure it out. We'll find out something to ramble on for a while. So, Steven, say goodbye.